welcome back. You saw in that time lapse, we've got kind of an unusual weather pattern. Got some dry air filtering in, a little bit of northeasterly flow, and you could see that from earlier here, further back in that time sequence. You can see the layer of stratocumulus just above the layer of moderate cumulus that you see here. That's lower down. So basically they've developed and spread out underneath an inversion, and gradually, with the dry air filtering in, the clouds evaporated and we're left with clear skies. And this is what the view looks like outside as of this time. So things are starting to shut down there. A little bit of cumulus way off to the south. Okay, off we go to the maps. And there's where we can see the northeasterly flow. And before I get further, let me check and let me know how the audio is sounding to y'all, just to make sure we haven't had any poltergeists working the computer while I was gone or anything like that. Let's see here. Sue M joining us, and Ryan. Hot weather there in South Florida, but nice and clear outside. Great. Glad we're able to spread the good weather around. Funwin Tech is here, and Mick, I think Mick is in Australia. Ryan is in the office organizing schedules for Monday. Burl H, beautiful weather in eastern Iowa. Good. Should be a cool night there, too. Ron Chalfant, Southern California. Glad to be home for Tim's broadcast tonight. Yeah, I'm glad I can make it down. You saw that opening clip. I did kind of a late night drive. I left San Antonio about 9 o'clock, and I stopped at that Bucky station. Gas was $1.84 a gallon there. Kevin McKinney, liking the travel scenes. Brett Dean, busy. Oh, Southern Jersey. Picture of a wall cloud Wednesday, tornado warning yesterday morning, tornado touchdown, just north of him, rated EF0. Severe weather season is short at Brett Dean's place. Thomas Copeland is here. Thomas, are you the one in Las Cruces, or am I thinking of somebody else? Or, I'm sorry, hang on. I think I jumped the gun. We've got a viewer in Las Cruces. I'm trying to remember the name, but it's escaping me. Burl H saying audio is good. Good. Big hail this evening with the storms. We'll take a look at that shortly, and we'll bring up GR level X. Audio is good. Audio is good. 339 gas for Ron Chalfant. Well, you can always come out to drive out to San Antonio and maybe fill up the bed of your pickup truck. Bring about 200 gallons of 184 gas back to California. Should last you a while if you put some Stabil in it. Australia, sunny, 16 Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit there. Pretty good for winter. Good. Robert Terrell saying hello, and Stephen Williams. Oh, New Zealand. That's excellent. Sunny and cool there, 15 Celsius. Yeah, New Zealand, very beautiful. I've often gone into Google Earth and looked at the panorama shots from around the country there. Okay, well, we've got some storms, a little bit of that upslope action going on in Texas. So even though we're getting dry air here in this part of Texas, some of the moisture down to the south is recirculating back up to New Mexico, and also the higher elevation is a big influence on helping to generate those storms. So let's look at the moisture field. Okay, so you can see that we do have some higher dew points kind of in a band from southeast Texas up to about Lubbock. The cool air, or the dry air, is located up in this region here. So a little bit of a dividing line, and almost kind of like a little bit of a, kind of like a dry line almost in this area right here. Now, I don't think structurally that would look like a dry line. I think the cold front is down to the south, so I don't know, who knows? It could have some characteristics of a dry line. but out ahead of it, moisture, and that's the reason we've had that cumulus buildup. Anywhere where you have the theta E axis, and let me bring up the theta E. There's the axis right there. And this is what puts you furthest to the right on the skew-T diagram. And then a few hours ago, this is what it looked like earlier. So theta E axis running roughly like that. So on the skew-T, the lines will be further off to the right, and they're going to be more likely to clear the cap given the upper air conditions being homogeneous across the area. And you can see the theta E axis going all the way up in New Mexico. So the higher elevations there allowing storms to develop in that area there. And let's see what the moisture looks like. In fact, I should just go into digital atmosphere and look at all the conditions and kind of blend everything together. So I'm going to set up a couple of NEXRAD stations in that area. And we'll also grab some upper air data, so we'll do that real quick. Make a few changes to the settings here. Okay, looks good. So we'll bring in the 8 p.m. Central data. So the first thing that we'll show is the, let's put the county outlines up. Okay, that looks a lot better. Copy that onto the base map, and now we'll bring up the radar. Now, once that's done, okay, all done, so now we'll plot the surface data. There we go. So now we can see the axis of higher dew points making their way up into northeast New Mexico right there. And you can also see the confluence of the wind field in that area. So all of that is put together helps with upward vertical motion in the wind field. And let's see here. Here's the 60-degree dew points. I'm kind of doing an isodrosotherm analysis. Okay, then in between, okay, that's a bad plot right there. Here's a 65, just southwest of Amarillo, and another 65 in Amarillo. So this is the moisture axis feeding these storms up near Dalhart and north of Tucumcari, out around Las Vegas, New Mexico, and just west of Clovis. That looks like a good storm right there near Dalhart, 64-degree dew points and southeast winds in that area. So we'll check that out. Let me bring up GR level 2. And we'll have to look at the Amarillo radar. I just noticed some clouds come into view here on the webcam outside, so we're not completely cleared out. All right, back to the GR level 2. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm all over the place. There we go. Bring up the Amarillo radar, and now we'll download the data. Okay, data is gradually coming in. These files tend to be about 1 to 2 megabytes, and there's the storms there up in the northwest panhandle. And definitely looks like those are hailers. You can see some very high dBZs in there. Let me move this around where we can read the dBZs down at the bottom. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And on that one frame back there, saw some pretty high values in here. 73 dBz's. I think that would have to be close to a record as far as any dBz's that I remember ever seeing. So typically you're looking up around 60 to 65 for hailstorms, and 73, that's way off the charts there. That's definitely going to be an indicator of wet, large hailstorms coming down. The reflectivity gradients, though, not too strong. Maybe a little bit of a gradient in here, and maybe a little bit of a supercell. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'd call that a supercell. Let's take a look at the wind field. Looks like we might have a bit of rotation in there. Here's outbound velocities from the radar. And then we have some inbounds right there, some broad scale rotation, and maybe a little bit of very tight small scale rotation right there. See that right there? We have 44 coming in, 13 going out, so that's 53 knots of shear right in that spot right there. And that's way back. This right here, this is kind of the RFD area, so maybe a little bit of a supercell structure in there. And this is probably an old occluded circulation that has kind of moved around to the back of the storm. And I think we would find the forward flank downdraft out in this area here. For those of you not familiar with the supercell model, let me see if I can bring that up. I'll give you an example of that. Supercell structure. And yeah, Doswell has the classic. I'll just bring that up. This is the conceptual model that he came up with back in the late 70s. And let's see, this one is from Bluestein right there. But anyway, it's the same sort of diagram. And you can see the forward flank downdraft right there. Rear flank downdraft coming in from the west. So usually you get some good straight westerly winds, straight line winds. Tend to get a little bit of damage south of the tornado track when you have a supercell like this. So anyway, I think we do have a bit of maybe some rotation, maybe a bit of a wall cloud in this area here. Let me see if we have any warnings up. Bring those up here. Yeah, we've got a tornado, oh, I'm sorry, a severe thunderstorm warning. And I'm sure that it's going to be for that hail. Tennis ball sized hail. That's about 2 to 3 inches there. 60 mile an hour wind gusts. Okay, so there you go. Serious storms there, and also near Dumas. Pretty good storm in that area. We'll check the shear on that. And looks like I need to set a storm vector to kind of get rid of some of the inbounds here. Let me do that. We'll go for 230 at 15. It doesn't... You can pretty much set your own storm vectors. GR Level 2 is a good program for doing that. And it doesn't necessarily have to equate to the cell motion. Generally, you're just trying to kind of subtract out some of the overwhelming inbounds or outbounds to kind of root out and find out exactly where the shear is. But you do want to kind of have it somewhere in the ballpark of the storm motion. Otherwise, your circulation positions are going to be way off. Okay, we've got a lot of outbounds in this area right here, a little bit of inbound. So maybe a little bit of convergence right in that area. So I think we're probably looking at the inflow into that storm out in this region right there. Feeding up into that. And this is probably structurally kind of like a dry line supercell, probably kind of LP-ish. And then, of course, the other storms out there in New Mexico, if we looked at the Cannon or Clovis radar, we would probably see some other hailers back in there. Yeah, I mean, this one here out near Las Vegas, that's showing up very high reflectivities at a very long range, 112 miles out. So that's actually even further. Yeah, look at that thing. We're picking up high reflectivities, 23,000 feet up, 156 nautical miles from the radar. It's about 175 statute miles. Let's see how tall that thing is. Picking up echoes at 56,000 and quite a bit of it at 44. So certainly up in the 50,000 foot range there. Okay, let's head back to our other maps and see what else is going on. I think it was mentioned that New Jersey saw some storms, and I don't know if that's going on right now or yesterday, but we'll take a quick look. Does seem like we have some cells moving off the coast. Yeah, it looks like they've cleared out, so looking pretty good there. Dry westerly winds coming in back behind these cells. Okay, slight risk for New Mexico, an enhanced area also that in that area we looked at. So some of the storms ended up being kind of outside that area. And look at that, we've got a little bit of a storm area for Northern California and Southern Oregon. So something going on out there. It could be cold core storms, or who knows. We'll just keep looking at the charts. Okay, here's the 500 millibar heights and anomalies. So I kind of like looking at this, kind of see what's been happening over the past 5 days. This is earlier, around midweek or so, maybe around Wednesday. And you can see the progression of things over the weekend. So it looks like we've got some definite height rises there in the Pacific. Height falls there in the Hudson Bay area region. And then we're left with this northwesterly flow pattern. And looks like the upper level high has been kind of building in back around Arizona. So maybe temperatures are going back up there. And you can see with a very strong ridging out here in Washington, Oregon, they're certainly getting some very warm temperatures. So that may have something to do with some of the severe weather there. Throw in a little bit of heat and moisture, and you've got some severe weather. So let me bring up the chart there. We'll take a look at what's going on in Oregon. Yeah, we can look at Iceland, I guess. Nice and cold, 30s and 40s. There's Reykjavik right there, 48 over 41. That sounds pretty good right about now. Okay, so let's move out to Oregon. Okay, map is coming up right now, and I think I probably want to look at a little bit of radar data. So I'll go ahead and set that up and clear that out. We can look at Medford, Arcata, Beale, Pendleton, and Portland. So we'll plot that up. So out there in the West Coast, it's a little bit earlier in the day, so we're looking at about 5 or 6 p.m. So they're just coming off of peak heating. So it looks like we got one cell. I guess that would be around I-5, around maybe Weed or one of those towns along the border. And there's our, wow, 98 inland. I guess that's Bend. I don't know too many of the towns out there, but 94 at, oh, holy cow, 94 at Portland, 94 in Seattle, 93 at Tacoma, okay, and 95 inland. And let's see, the hottest temperature I'm seeing, it's probably this 98, I think that's Yakima. 98 there at Red Bluff. And let me see what's going on in Arizona. 114 at Phoenix, 118 at Blythe, 119 at Needles. Okay. Yeah, so this doesn't look all that great for that area. And let's see what's causing the severe weather, or the thunderstorms. I don't know if it's severe or not, but I can see 67 dew points. So I'm not sure what would bring up dew points up to 60, because the ocean out there is still kind of cool. So it's not going to add a whole lot of moisture to the air mass. But I guess that would be about the only source. So maybe we did pull up a little bit of low-level moisture off the ocean surface there, worked inland, maybe with the sea breeze coming in. And with the orographic effects, and looks like maybe a little bit of convergence. You see that right there. That's the convergence line right there between Oregon and California. So a bit of a heat low probably settling in this area and helping to generate those storms. Okay, 250 millibar analysis. We'll just take a quick look at this. There's our big ridge on the west coast. Wherever you have that upper level ridging, that's where you have the heat. And Arizona, they've got a little bit of a prevailing westerlies picking up. So it doesn't quite look like high pressure has settled in over Arizona at this time. Looks like that's mostly well south in Mexico. 110 knot jet winds in the central plains up to the northeast U.S. So we're going to expect to find a baroclinic low, maybe somewhere in the northeast U.S., and a baroclinic high back in this area. So here's the upper level troughing. Here's the ridging, a little bit of a shortwave ridge in there. There's a ridge right there. So between the downstream trough and the upstream ridge, that's where you're going to expect to find high pressure. And then, I'm not sure whether to go with this ridge way up here to the top of the chart or this one, but looks like somewhere in between we would find a low right there, anywhere from Pennsylvania up to the Maritimes. Okay, closer look at things. There's a 200 millibar chart. Do we have a subtropical jet? Maybe a little bit of a weak one. This would be kind of the area I would expect to find that in. The polar front jet well up to the north. Looks like maybe just a little bit of coupling right there around Amarillo. So 70 knots. That's probably helping to ventilate those storms there, giving us long-lived structures. And then the other side of the coin would be the low-level wind field, like the 850, 700 millibar chart. In fact, we'll just head on down and take a look. 700 millibars. Very weak capping. So this time of the year, anything over 10 to 12 Celsius would indicate a strong cap. And there's the 10 Celsius line right through here. Does look like a 700 millibar temperature is kind of on the warm side in Oregon, so I might have to take a look at a SCU-T there. I wonder if they've got a bit of capping helping with their storm activity there. Down at 850, got a little bit of a low-level jet. Maybe something, maybe we had a bit of a low-level jet overnight in this area, transporting moisture to the northeast. So Surface winds out of the southeast in Amarillo, 700 millibar flow. That's kind of on the weak side. Okay, so when we have weak mid-level winds, that's going to be a problem for severe weather development. That's going to keep some of your supercell structures in check there. That kind of reduces the curvature of the photograph. And then 925. Kind of see the moisture coming back up that way. All right. Let's head on to the satellite data. There's the storms well to the south. This is the sea breeze working its way inland. When we're under this southeasterly flow, sea breeze tends to get going right along the coast, and then it will make it to the Austin, San Antonio area, maybe up to Centerville, Buffalo, Lufkin. Sometimes under very strong southerly flow, it'll make its way all the way up to Dallas. But these will be shutting down gradually as we lose heating. Looks like a little bit of a boundary here. So if you're a forecaster there at San Angelo, that would be very important for your forecast. If you're expecting convection, you would take note of that. See here, there's a little bit of an indication maybe of a boundary. And looks like if we had a little bit more heating, this would probably be a good area for storm development. And then we go up to the north end. There's our Dalhart storm. Looking pretty good there. Let's take a look at our Oregon storm. Pull that up on Go 16. I think we can do better than that. Let me change the zoom factor. Oh yeah, this looks pretty good. You can see some very good overshooting tops there. I don't really know the cities, but I guess that there's a town called well, Red Bluff is here. I know Weed's here. I think there's a town called Wairika or something like that. Anyway, this is going to be just west of I-5, and I bet that would look pretty spectacular driving up I-5 on this Sunday afternoon and seeing those anvils. You get underneath these, and probably some very good structure underneath. These storms are, well, they aren't underneath the ridging, so the upper level flow is going to be a little bit on the weak side, but I can see the anvils are a little bit elongated. Let's take a look real quick. Yeah, the upper level flow kind of depressed. 20, 30 knots, 500 millibars on the weak side, 700 weak southerly, 850 weak southeasterly. Okay, so we got a little bit of turning in the column, but upper level winds are, I guess they're weaker than they look on that satellite. So let me go ahead and just bring up a radar up in, I guess we'll have to do Medford. Got a couple severe thunderstorm warnings up for that area. The data is coming up. Quarter-sized hail. Radar indicated source. And this other one, western Siskiyou County, near Nordheimer Campground, 13 miles east of Orleans. And there they are. So relative to Interstate 5, they're about 40 miles away. So I guess maybe you would not have a great view of the structure, but probably some pretty nice anvils. I'm looking here for shear, and these look to be, yeah, there's very weak wind velocities in these storms. Okay, so let's see, the storm is right here. This is going to be the updraft area, kind of right in there. And let's see, yeah, very weak shear. Doesn't look like any tornado risk or anything like that. Probably just some hail. And then we'll look at the tops on this. Looking at about 35,000 feet. And severe weather, it is kind of rare out in the western U.S. I remember when I worked in Nevada, I never saw any watch boxes for Nevada when I was there. I saw one at one time for southern Idaho. That was in late June, right around this time of the year. It's pretty rare, but it's nice to be able to see an example of this. Looks like we got a hurricane off the coast around Acapulco, Mexico. So let me go down to that storm. I'm sure Ryan is probably on top of this. I haven't looked at the products myself, so I'm kind of going along with you guys and looking at things. So yeah, some very cold tops. Let's see what storm we've got. Switch over to the eastern North Pacific. Dora, okay. Sustained winds 45 knots. Very high pressure of 1,001 millibars. And that's going to be tracking to the west-northwest. And then let's check out the Atlantic. Look for any development. Nothing over the next 48 hours. So, pretty quiet. So let's return to our neck of the woods, and let me bring up the polar orbiter data. Because this is a good opportunity to capture the sea breeze coming onto the Texas coast. The stream is probably going to drop a few frames as I bring this up, so just be patient here. Wow, pretty good storm there in the Yucatan. So this is around midday. And I think at this point we're probably, I'm not too sure where the sea breeze is. It's not showing up very well. Doesn't show up very well there either. You can see Houston right here. So surface data would probably help bring that out a little bit. I think it may actually be pretty close to the coast at this point. Let's check out the thickness. Keep things moving along here. So we've got a very baroclinic pattern across the U.S. this evening, which means we're going to have fronts. So you can see that very strong thermal gradient. So we've probably got some sort of front from off the East Coast all the way down to Texas. So we would look at the surface data to kind of figure out how far north or south the front is. But there's the baroclinic high, about where we expected, right around Missouri. And then the low, well, the occluded low is well up in Baffin Island. You can see that. However, the main baroclinic zone, let's see, there's the warm front. Yeah, it looks like that's already cleared the Maritimes. So this is the main baroclinic triple point area. That's just east of Newfoundland. And then back behind it, we just got a lot of cold air advection. Okay, returning to the western U.S., I'm looking for fronts. And I think we've got one coming on shore right through there. Obviously, we have no cold air mass across Oregon and Washington, not with those temperatures. So the cold air mass center is out around southeast Alaska. So I don't know if that front's going to make it down to Washington. It's the bulk of it probably heading up to British Columbia, Alberta. And then inland we can see the thermal lows. These are barotropic lows. And above that we usually find high pressure aloft. Okay, we'll take a quick look at a sounding. Let's check out Medford. This is a rare look at a western U.S. severe weather situation. And it looks like we do got a bit of capping with a southeasterly flow that's coming from the inland areas. That would be warmed from the higher terrain, the mountain slopes and the higher terrain. So the genesis of that mixed layer aloft, that capping layer, that's the same as what we see here on the southern plains. Then down below that we got a radiational inversion, and basically they're seeing the temperatures warming up during the day, and then with a high of 70, 88, the bottom part of the sounding is like that. And then you have to modify this for that moisture. Bring the moisture up to, let's see, maybe 65 dew point. We'll go with maybe 50, 100 millibars deep. So there's the moisture. So then, see what I'm doing now. I'm generating the lifted profile. Looks like we don't quite clear that. So obviously there's something else going on here. There's probably better moisture, or there's probably a little bit of a weaker cap south of Medford there. But aloft, we've got some very steep lapse rates, and the potential for anything that is developing very good cape up above that. Okay, let's move on and head on. We've been I can't believe we've been going for 40 minutes here. Sorry, I didn't know we were running into a bit of overtime here, but I guess we've been looking at a lot of activity. Let's see what the trend is on the high-resolution rapid refresh model. Here's our storms out in New Mexico. Looks like the model is fairly close on the details. Okay, so what's going to happen? Looks like it aggregates into MCS and moves through all of West Texas. Okay, so that's a very definite indicator that we're going to see an MCS tonight. That's there's no question about that. Let's see how far south that's going to make it. Okay, here's our MCS moving south. So it looks like by 5 in the morning that reaches the San Angelo area. And you can see that little gust front out ahead of it right there. And that moves to about Junction, Ozona, and then dies out just after dawn. And then there's this other northern part. I think this may be developing from other... There's probably a shortwave moving through the flow and triggering these. I don't think that's the MCS. But the model is indicating shortly after dawn, probably some cells developing, and these do look like deep convection. It's got that popcorn look to it there. So those go up over Dallas, and I guess we're looking for probably more rain in North Texas. Let's see what's feeding that MCS. Usually we look at the low-level flow. Let's go down to 850. Okay, so this is right around the time the MCS is intensifying, and we do see it's being fed by 25 knot southeasterly flow. Now, of course, the big question is, what are the dew points like at 850? Because we want the inflow to be as moist as possible. The dew points, the surface dew points, may not be representative of the inflow. I mean, we can go ahead and take a look at that, but if the moisture is shallow, that's not going to help things out very much. Okay, so anyway, moisture axis, yeah, that's pretty close to where the MCS is heading. Looks like it's kind of gobbling up some of this moisture. Dew points in the 60s through here. And you can see that gust front right there, not only in the plotted barbs, but also the textures. See that texture right there? Watch this. You can see it really standing out right there. That's the drier air surging southward. And looks like we're bringing up 70s dew points around the Abilene area overnight. So pretty spectacular there. You can see a secondary gust front right there. Very neat. Looks like very outflowish. A lot of dry air, probably a lot of mid-level dry air working its way to the surface and generating a lot of cold pools. And this is important for tomorrow's forecast because these boundaries are likely going to be where convection redevelops tomorrow. Okay, for 850 millibar moisture, there's one source that you can look at, and let me show you where to find this. This data, for some reason, is very hard to find on the internet. 850 millibar dew points, you would think that would be easy to find. It's common to find 850 relative humidity, but that's not important for convection. You have to be looking at the dew points or the mixing ratio. So this pivotal weather site on the NAM, they do carry a plot here of 850 millibar dew point. So it's under this upper air moisture menu. So this will be at about 5,000 feet MSL. And we don't have hardly any data from the 0Z, so I'm going to go back to 18Z. So, yeah, it looks like we do have a bit of moisture at 850, especially down around Abilene. And these are dew points of about, these are in the 60s. 60 degrees Fahrenheit up at 5,000. So this is good moisture depth, and that's what will support an MCS for sure. Yep. We've got inflow, especially close to the surface, and we've got good moisture and good moisture depth. So you can basically see right there what's feeding the MCS. This is midnight. And then we get up to about dawn. At this point, most of the moisture at 5,000 feet, 850 millibars, is in the Midland area. See that right there? And the low-level jet is set up right in this area here. So that's the reason that this MCS is mostly tracking to the south and not so much into the Dallas area. So the better conditions in the Pecos River region and around San Angelo. And then we see later for tomorrow, these are the 850 millibar dew points, and looks like a bit of a convergence zone in the hill country. So maybe we'll see a little bit of thunderstorms redeveloping around the Austin area to maybe back around Kerrville. Looks like a good chance of rain in this area. And I guess this will probably be a good opportunity to bring us into the forecast. Good segue. So let's do that real quick. And let's see, do I want to look at thickness or dew point? I guess we'll Yeah, I guess I'll look at thickness. We haven't looked at that in a while. Let me take a look at the chat here real quick. Let's scroll through this. Barbara Terrell says his chat wasn't going or something earlier. This is a lot earlier. Now his chat's going. Lloyd McCarter says, finally had a bit of a storm when Cindy's moisture reached further north. Greg Kerner joining, and Thomas Fortner in Houston. Carl says, welcome back, Tim. Hope your grandma is okay. Yeah, she's hanging in there, doing well. You know, she could be better, but we're glad she seems to be fine, and we'll just hope for the best here. Okay, Brett Dean says, what altitude do you usually have an overshooting top? Those are normally going to be up above the tropopause. The tops of the storms tend to be right around the tropopause level, and then the overshoots will go above that. So the exact height really depends on the SCU-T, but you're usually looking in the 40 to 50,000 foot range, sometimes 60,000. And the highest that I've ever seen is about 72,000. And yeah, it does push through the troposphere. Technically what it's doing is it's pushing through the equilibrium level. And the equilibrium level, that represents the top of the anvils, and typically that's close to the tropopause level, but they can be a little bit different. San Antonio, Lloyd McCarter's birth city. Nice and relaxing to visit with family. Very good. Jumping Flash joining earlier, and Mike Estwick saying hi, Tim, or hi all. Ryan is hot. More people cooking food on the dashboard of vehicles in Phoenix. Yep, 110s for today. Sarah Wood is here, and Andrew Hotchkiss, mostly sunny, low 70s. 60% humidity in Pittsburgh. Follow Truth, mentioning the storms there in that mountainous area. He lives in the Sacramento area. Small tornado season in spring and fall, F-zeros. I remember a chaser, I want to say it's Marty Feely. I believe that he started in the 80s in California looking at the tornadoes there in the San Joaquin Valley. And he would write into the American Weather Observer. They used to have a newspaper thing, and he would basically describe how they would get going during the spring. You know, you get like an upper level system moving through there in the wake of these cold fronts, and you get these cold core storms, and they produce funnels and that kind of thing. And yeah, I think that may have been Marty. Ron Chalfant, Hurricane Dora expected. Popping up real quick in the Pacific, and HC updates every 6 hours. Fortunately, doesn't look like that's going to affect Mexico. The polar orbiter product for Andrew, that's going to be the Worldview. So you put in NASA and Worldview, and that'll take you to that site. All clear on the Atlantic side from Ryan. Robert Terrell says, thanks for a great webcast. I appreciate it. Brett Dean says, thanks, God bless. We'll send pictures, prayers for your grandma. I appreciate that. Follow Truth says, interesting. The cells are very small and quick here. Okay, so now we'll head into the forecast. And we're looking at a global model here. This is the GFS. So this is not going to handle the mesoscale details in Texas very well. But as far as the large-scale pattern, this will kind of give us an idea of what's happening. So high pressure across the central U.S. There's that baroclinic high right there over Missouri. So for tomorrow's webcast, hang on, let me see if I can Let me try to get that going. There we go. Wow, we're going into Monday. Okay. So for tomorrow night, Monday, high pressure continuing over the Midwest. And we got a little bit of return flow on the Texas coast. And that's very important because that can feed these EMCSs. If we get like a pattern where the EMCSs redevelop tomorrow night, that southeasterly flow will help feed those. So we'll have to see what happens. Okay, troughing out over the Montana-Wyoming area. It looks like maybe the cold front may be starting to work onshore. It's definitely in this region right through here, but through Washington, I don't know how far south it's going. Just have to kind of scroll around and look at this, and it's very hard to find a thermal gradient. I can see like one in here, for example. But these thickness lines are very spread out, especially when you get further into the week. Yeah, like right there. Those lines are very spread out. But it looks like we have had some diffusion, or we will say some diffusion of that cold air through the week into the northwest U.S. right there. Okay, for Tuesday, see, we get cyclogenesis in the central U.S. So the large-scale picture, return flow coming in from the south across Texas. So that'll bring a change to the pattern. The high pressure moves eastward into the Appalachians. Westerly flow in the Great Lakes. So that'll be bringing up some warm weather into Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Okay, then for Wednesday night, this looks like our frontal system from the Pacific. So that's approximately what the fronts look like, and we've probably got a dry line set up back in here somewhere. The model is not developing any precip south of Kansas, so I think we're seeing the cap come back, keeping things kind of shut down right there. And MCSs for Iowa and Illinois there. Okay, then for Thursday, looks like some new cyclogenesis in Kansas, so I guess we're getting a new wave coming through. And this connects up to that other system up in the Great Lakes. And that's the frontal picture right there. So it looks like a very stormy pattern for Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. And I'm sitting here thinking whether this would have the potential to create maybe an MCS through that area, or maybe a derecho. Certainly a good pattern for that. And look at that, we've got some sort of low pressure area kind of coming up Friday into the Great Lakes. That's weird. That's a very compact, unusually tight low pressure area. What is that thing? It looks like a little hurricane or something. Let me see where that came from. I guess it developed with some sort of shortwave coming across the Rockies. Let me take a look at the upper level flow. That may just be due to some sort of glitch there in the model. Let me look at the dynamics here real quick. Okay, so that little feature that we saw right there over Chicago, that thing right there, that shows up in Kansas Thursday afternoon. Okay, we're loading up frames right now. Hopefully this doesn't hurt our feed too much, but This should finish up here very quickly. Okay, so there's Thursday. It looks like we do have a pretty good shortwave moving through the Rockies, approaching Kansas there. And yeah, there it goes. Okay, so that's that system right there. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, but I think that's probably just some sort of glitch there in the model. Probably a very compact surface low. And then along the tail end of that front right there, cold front from Illinois to Oklahoma. Looks like with that southerly gradient, looks like thunderstorms along that boundary there for next weekend, the 1st. And then we're looking at the 4th of July weekend. Looks like cyclogenesis again for Texas Panhandle right there. Warm front in Oklahoma. This is a good pattern for thunderstorms in southern Kansas and the North Oklahoma area. There's the moist southerly flow coming up from the south. And then for the 4th of July weekend, or actually 4th of July is on Tuesday. Okay, let's see what happens. High pressure across the Great Lakes, some sort of boundary through the I-40 corridor. And then for the 4th of July itself, looks like we got a bit of maybe a warm front in Kansas, Missouri. Looks like very nice, cool, dry conditions across the Great Lakes. Down in the southeast U.S., looks obviously kind of rainy here. And this has the look of a lot of residual convective boundaries, so that's probably what's going on there. Some moisture and boundaries kind of in play in the southeast U.S. The flow in Texas a little bit, it's got a little bit of a westerly component, a little bit of downslope there, so looks like just kind of hot and dry weather for the northwest U.S. Cold front coming south, bringing cool air into Oregon and Washington. Looks good for Alberta too. And then for the southwest U.S., looks like just continued hot and dry. And then for the rest of the forecast, looks like some sort of MCS there on the night of July 4th in Oklahoma. Looks like that's heading south. Yeah, probably a very small MCS there. And the reason I think it's an MCS is because you can see that this is overnight convection. This is 6Z, and it's showing up pretty strong there. And then by 12Z, this is dawn. You can see it start to diminish. So usually nighttime convection like this is indicative of an MCS. Okay, then for the first or second week of July there, looks like a couple more frontal systems up in the north central U.S. and otherwise pretty quiet, things shutting down here in Texas. It does look like we've got some sort of tropical disturbance. This is way off to the bottom. Let me show you this real quick. Yeah, see that right here, some sort of tropical disturbance on the Mexican coast. That's diverting some of the moisture, bringing it mostly into northeastern Mexico. So that'll keep Texas kind of dry, but we'll keep an eye on this because that could be a new tropical system, and that could take a track to the north, depending on what happens. And then we get up to July 11th, and that's pretty much all I have right there. Okay, so let me head to the chat here real quick, and give me just a second. Okay. Heading over to the chat. Andrew Hotchkiss found the polar orbiter data. Good. Brett Dean, like and subscribe. Very important. I appreciate it. Ryan Toomey's marginal risk of thunderstorms expected there for Florida tomorrow. High moisture hanging out through Thursday. Ron Chalfant, gotta go. Great show. Always learning. I appreciate that also. And Ryan saying landspout and waterspout, high season for Florida at this point. All right, that's about all I got for tonight's show. I appreciate you all joining. Let me get the... Hang on a second. I don't want to blast you with music, so I had to jump at the fader there. But anyway, thanks for joining, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, and take care.